Hello, my name's Casper from ClearCommunityWeb. We were formed at the beginning of 2019 after a series of pilot projects, and we now work across South London. So today we're going to talk a little bit about digital support and how it can be embedded within social prescribing, which is in part how we're currently doing things and in part our vision moving forward. We always come at things very much at an eye level with the people we work with at a community level, and we hope to provide a suite of programs which combined will make some change. Unfortunately, we do have a spoiler alert. The digital divide cannot be fixed. Now, I don't want to discredit any of the wonderful projects currently working within digital inclusion at the moment. But I do feel that if we focus on something being fixed, we focus on something being an end point, we miss out on some valuable points. So some of the things we do need to consider are that the pace of technological change is faster than our ability to adapt. Our ability to adapt is also part our choice and part circumstance. For some of us, it might be entirely all circumstance. We might not have that choice. And most importantly, and because of that, there are times when we all need support. So how are we addressing that at ClearCommunityWeb? Well, as I said before, we always have a community-based focus to all of our work. We go to where people are already seeking support and, more importantly, feel comfortable. And by feeling comfortable, we can help to develop and build trust. By building trust, they can feel more at ease and can start to unravel some of the problems for themselves. One of the biggest challenges we found is trying to help people, number one, frame what the problem is for themselves, and number two, to start to problem solve. So how do we do that? So we've got a program of what we call community tech support drop-ins. So we go to places. We run 6 of these currently at the moment across South London, 6 weekly drop-ins. And we're going to where people already are receiving support. So that might be community cafes, community libraries. We work alongside citizens' advice. We've also gone into churches and food banks as well. We provide a more structured program of community learning, where again, those that are more willing and able to focus specifically on a subject that with all of our courses has a rooting in kind of building confidence and being safer online, but also we'd like to do that in a social environment. We've got our community learning program, and we also do social events. And at the moment, one of the things we're really focusing on are our mobile phone boot camps. Think aerobics and mobile phones, and you're kind of halfway there. So those 3 combined, we feel are a program of socialization. They're a program where people can build confidence and also feel part of a conversation. And we've realized that and observed that technology can be very isolating for people. There's an assumption that because you don't know everything or you don't know something, you automatically assume that everyone knows everything else. So in all of our social environments, we try to kind of, unravel that and help people realize that, actually, we've all got some questions and not everyone knows everything. But with a bit of time and sitting down with someone, there is a fighting chance that you can see and unravel a problem for yourself, or someone can do it. And that really, for us, is where the magic is. We can provide a program of home visits, particularly for very, very vulnerable adults. And for us, these are always referred by services, social prescribers, link workers, and GPs. We also link with partners to help us access donations, loans, and a more technical central support provided by volunteers across all of our programs. So we feel that the kind of the more social, light touch kind of community aspect is then married with and paired with a more technical central support, or also access to the devices, but we also signpost to other programs and stuff as well. So we really believe that all of the places that people can come to us for support, whether it is the classes, the courses, whether it is the workshops, whether it is the drop-ins, you then come into a world where you can then access all of these other things. And we think that that package is the thing that overall and over time will provide some difference and some change. But when we looked at these things individually, we found it very difficult to kind of quantify, what did that one single donation on its own do, when actually that person then needed to come to a drop-in for 4 or 5 weeks to kind of, start inputting their contacts or whatever, if it was a mobile phone. So how does this all fit in to social prescribing? Why did we kind of cotton on to this approach? And I think really for us, it kind of came because during COVID, we were able not only to continue our work, but we were able to change and expand and react to the changing circumstances. And the key way that we did that, particularly, and the new way, was that we were able to reach out to not only referring partners such as GPs, such as charities, such as mental health workers, caseworkers, independence coordinators. But through that, we were able to understand not only the challenges that their people were facing, but the challenges that they were facing in accessing those people. So we were kind of feeling that every interaction, we were kind of learning two things every time we did something. So for us, that was a 2-for-1 deal, which I always like, and that seemed to make sense. And through that, we were also able to kind of build trust. So we, over a period of time, just developed a network of providing a central support function where social prescribers, the NHS, the council, social care, housing, adult learning, libraries, VCS, citizens advice, and those others that are doing information, advice and guidance can all now refer into us and do. And we have an ongoing relationship with some of the people that we work with, but also with the referring partners that refer into us. And what we found is that people trying to help people with technical stuff, they may need their confidence building. So just by really looking at how to make this whole thing more human, look at ways that we could all help, slowing down, we felt that approach not only was more helpful to the people we were working with, but it also opened doors for other people. It wasn't this thing of, oh, well, I'm okay with my phone, I've got no idea how that works, you're going to need to sort of find some help from somewhere else. It was like, okay, for us, let's look at the common ground, let's see what we can do, let's try to help people assess problems better, so then they can then signpost either into us or a more appropriate form of support. The other thing we realized is that because the people we were working with, more often than not, came with other challenges, anxieties and stresses themselves, and in particularly some real problems, it made much more sense for us to then understand how we then can refer in, okay, to other services. And having that kind of two-way conversation just made perfect sense. And through that, we're just able to have a bit more of a relationship. It's almost like a guardianship with the people that we work with. We have a duty of care that extends from service to service. We'd like to think it's almost like a baton being passed on. So we spent a lot of time really trying to understand the barriers and challenges of people. And the more we tried to do this, the less it was actually about how to use technology, how to use a laptop. The things that were really common were, it was anxiety. Things were too confusing. They'd never been shown. But then there was a lot of stuff around being embarrassed because they didn't know stuff, or they may have memory loss. They may not have the finance to do it. But there also may be real things around poor reception, the wrong tech, things not being set up properly. And we tried to just really untangle what was the thing that we could help with, that person could understand at that point, and what were the things that we needed to sort of take away and provide a different solution for, and what were the bits that we needed to identify other partners to signpost into. And I think on the right, you see a little diagram about the iceberg theory. So this was really evident to us. So what someone presented right at the very beginning, underneath was really the real issue. So someone getting frustrated with their mobile phone and can't access an email, and when you're trying to slow them down, you realize that, you know, they might even be on a different app, or they might be in a different folder in their email, and they're getting very frustrated, and they you know, feel it might be to do with them, it might be to do with the phone. But the reason for the deep frustration is actually not so much the phone or the email, it's the content within the email. That email that they're trying to send or trying to read might be something very important. It might be kind of contending, you know, contending something that might be legal. It might be something around some other support. They might be getting being chased for debt, or anything, very sort of life important things. And that was the thing that was actually impeding their ability to think through, work it out. But in their mind, it was the technology. Couple of other things we observe as well about trying to support people. Now, I call this the Haynes manual approach. So those people that were educated or went to the schooling system really before computers, we were taught in a much more linear way. You know, we were taught that if you went from A to B to C to D, you reached up at a final point. So with the Haynes manual, if you had all the right equipment and you went from chapter 1 right the way through to the end, and you did it in the right order, you would have a fully working car. However, those people that have grown up through technology, and it's not so much because of technology, but the way we taught, the way we learn is much more experiential. It's much more about exploring. It's much more about problem solving and finding your way. So with a mobile phone, there isn't a single way of doing something. There isn't the concept of going from chapter 1, 2 to 3 to 4. What you have to do is go to the first, the next stage, and then you kind of see where you want to go. It might be option 2, 3, or 4. You go to the next one, and so on and so forth. If you're focusing on that end point with technology, you get so overwhelmed with the various different options and trying to remember them that actually you kind of miss out the point. And the point is that we need to be more comfortable with not knowing everything, and by doing that can be open to options that are presented in front of us. And by doing that, we've got a fighting chance of being able to troubleshoot, learn something new, but also importantly, help other people. We found there's a very direct relationship between the connectivity that someone has, the device that someone has, and the skills and support that someone has. And there's a triangle, and you need all three working. If you've got poor connectivity, and the person is very, you know, is kind of new to this, they're not going to be able to determine whether it's their fault why it's not working, whether it's the device's fault, or whether or not they've got connectivity. They're not necessarily the ones to be able to actually recognize that, because that's quite a sophisticated skill. And what we find is that if any of those three things in that triangle, you know, are deficit, or, you know, kind of stop working or are missing, self-confidence not only can pause, it can go backwards. It can be like a, you know, a rocky water. But when you've got, you know, reliable connectivity, a device that you can use, doesn't necessarily need to be the best, and that you have the skills and support around, then over time you can kind of build confidence, and time being the critical word, because we all work to a different timeline. People, some of us learn in different ways, but as per the previous slide, many people have different challenges, different abilities to learn, but also different priorities on that day. Okay, so for us, it's always been about trying to create environments where people feel comfortable, can slow down, in order to then work out quite what it is that they want to and need to do. And if we can capture that over a period of time, we can then see people engaging more and more with the things that they need to or want to learn and improve on. So with everything, we think actually less about the technology and more about what the person is trying to do. And as I said, they might be trying to access care and support. They might be trying to access financial information or financial advice, access to learning. They also might be trying to reduce anxiety and loneliness. So it's really about the person, what they're trying to do, why they're there at the time. The other thing we have observed is that the tech, the actual devices, the internet itself causes anxiety. So this very thing that was supposed to um, um, provide a door opening to this, wonderful new world. That very thing is the thing that can cause anxiety itself. And it's very, very interesting to us because we've seen some very physical reactions, and particularly when you start talking about safety scams. So everything that we try to do is about trying to help people become more engaged with their own learning, more empowered to make better decisions for themselves. And again, coming back to an earlier point, that for us, digital inclusion is actually more about choice. So when we were looking at social prescribing, we did come across this term, information, advice, and guidance. So what did we do about that? Well, we realized very quickly that, and as I said before, a lot of the people we spoke to were either coming from another service or could benefit from another service. So we spent a lot of our time fine-tuning our processes, our referral mechanism, a process of triage, but also looking at the data we keep and the information we store about the people that we work with, but also being very clear about the difference between information that we're giving to people, advice we can give, what would we do in a similar situation, and then guidance. And one of our drop-ins is now with Citizens Advice Bureau. And we found that that is a very nice kind of collaboration. And we've been doing that at Annerley Town Hall for about 7 weeks now. And already we probably see, a good 30% of the people we're individually working with are crossing over between both projects. The other thing that's nice within social prescribing is that we've been working with Lambeth, and Lambeth have this thing called the Health and Wellbeing Bus that goes around the borough, providing information about access to different services, health and wellbeing projects. And we've got a representative that travels with the bus and provides, on the spot assistance with phones, and also signposting not only to our projects, but the other projects, related projects within Lambeth that people can access. So in coming to address this more completely, we've developed what we call our community tech support drop-in. So we do 6 weekly ones throughout South London, and they're a combination of an informal place really for people to come for support. People can drop off devices that either need looking at or assessment, but also people can drop off donations as well, which is an important change. So we can kind of capture a whole range of the digital inclusion story all within our drop-ins. But really what we want these to be is a place where people kind of can come and practice, do the stuff that they've been learning. It's not always about learning something new or having other people fix problems. It's about trying to create an environment where people can get that support. And we try to encourage as many of the ones that are a little bit more confident to help the neighbor. And we've got several peer volunteers that have started helping us on a weekly basis since coming to either the drop-ins or other classes that we have. And we really started to think about how we can actually individually help people. And again, how we can do that, taking the technology away. And for us, we felt that the most important thing we can do when we sit with someone is to help them settle. And by slowing down and helping them settle, you can start to help them understand and frame what the particular issue is. By slowing down, you can then understand more fully what the challenge is, particularly if you have to read between the lines. By slowing down, you can then observe, and you can observe quite where the problem is. Is it a misunderstanding? Is it something that can be helped by by teaching something there and then? Is it something that's going to require a program of support, or is actually the device itself not working? So that observation is a really critical and important. It's part of our internal triage, I guess. Through that, and what is very, very important is that we can then set expectations with the person. Quite often, someone will kind of come in, if they've never been before, they may not know what to expect. They might have a long, long list like this of all of the things that they think they need to do, not always in a logical order. But by building that trust, by listening, by understanding, we can then start to think about, okay, what can we do now? Okay. And what can we plan to do over the next few weeks? And what is the other signposting or referral that we need to do to ensure that you get this problem solved? And this might sound counterintuitive, but we try to spend as little time with people as possible. Now, I don't mean that in a sense of like rushing through. What I mean by that is if someone does come into one of our drop-ins and they've got a particular question, it's quite common that the answering that individual question might take, let's just say 15 minutes. But in order for them to learn and reinforce that, they need to do 45, if not more minutes, learning, practicing, repeating. Okay, so we encourage that. Someone that kind of comes in with, I want this done, I want this done, I want this done, how do I do this? Without that opportunity to reinforce and build upon that, will come back 2, 3, 4 weeks later, quite often with the same question. So again, by doing one thing at a time, providing an opportunity for them to practice, allows them to slow and build their confidence. So we've got a triage and a referral process where we do through that look at the device, we try to pick up sort of other key points from them around their general attitude to safety or a particular subject. We discuss or try to observe any of the other barriers they may have and maybe look at kind of learning goals. And then through that, we start prioritizing with them what it is that they want to do. And if it looks like a program of work, then we might have a an action plan with them or an independent learning plan. Then we always define next steps as early as possible so that when someone comes in, they know that actually at the end, there is still going to be a positive outcome. And that might be coming into another drop-in. It might be a referral to either another service or another course, but it also might be to other support within the borough. Now, what we found really the difference between our community tech support and other people's drop-ins is that because we try to work in groups, we try to make it as social as possible. We found that there is a really direct relationship between someone coming in to our community tech support drop-ins, and after maybe 2 or 3 visits, it's quite evident that they would benefit from one of our community learning courses or an equivalent. And by encouraging that, what we then do is encourage them to come back to the drop-in to then practice what they learned the week before. Okay, so what we find is those people that are doing a course, whether it's let's just say it's an 8-week course, and let's just say it's an introduction to the internet. If this is a completely new subject to you, you're doing something once a week for 8 weeks, there's very little opportunity to really learn and practice independently. But if you're able to marry and pair that with our drop-ins, all of a sudden your 8-week course has 16 interactions, because in between you can access our drop-ins as well. So we found that people will come into a drop-in, then go into a learning course, come back to a drop-in, practice, and so on and so forth. And that takes often that people from that feeling of uncertainty through to confidence, because they're given a platform whereby not only can they see that there's something to aspire to, it may be that they're not quite ready for that course yet, or it may be they feel that they need to, check some understanding. They know they can come to a drop-in for that. But they also know drop-ins have a dynamic of their own, and they know there's another course coming. So we find this model really is the thing that has made a huge difference. Now we are seeing over 100 residents a week through our programs. We then marry that with critical support and home visits. So that might be virtual support, but that also is critical support in the home for people that are referred in. So this is a very safeguarded process. And that might be around assessing technology. It might be around setting up a device. And it's not uncommon for us to be referred to someone that's just recently come out of hospital, may have a disability, or have, a severe anxiety about leaving the house. We also marry that with access to devices and connectivity. So we do work with the national programs, but very specifically, we work with Community Tech Aid in Lambeth and Millennium Community Solutions, who can both help us provide either access to donated devices, but we also collect donations on behalf. So combined, we've got a project, we call it Drop In to Drop Off. Or we can access more specialist assistive technology, either equipment or expertise. And a big question that people have is, what are the right skills? What do we need to support people? And quite often, again, going back to the point about keeping it less technological and more human, what we try to do is we look for common ground. Okay, so rather than looking at, oh, I've never used an iPhone before, therefore I can't help you. By looking for common things, such as where the settings are, such as, apps that are kind of familiar, means that not only do you feel that anyone can actually help someone you're working with, but it also becomes a real opener for perhaps social prescribers, nurses, care workers, who now, by slowing down and thinking through, seeing our approach in helping, they think, okay, well, there probably is a bit more that we can do before we refer someone on. And what we realize is that in itself is a social interaction. And the other thing really is about think the journey, not destination, that time with someone. And again, all of that really for us is so aligned with whether it's social prescribing and link working, whether it's the people working with the people, okay, with the residents, or whether it's the link workers who now are more enabled to either find a better support, but also be part of that journey as well. And by doing that, building up some skills. So that's the end of the presentation. As I say, my name's Casper. Thank you for kind of attending this talk. My contact details are on the slide. Please, please, please get in contact, and see you next time.